Welcome back to the Let's Talk Baseball podcast. I am your host, Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend Jacob Payne. We got some good stuff to talk to you about. Finally covering some moves before some power rankings coming out soon next week. The Padres, they've been building shop. They signed Walker to that crazy, weird, really weird deal. Darvish, Padre till he's 42. Machado, a Padre for 10 more years. The Bucks, the big bad boy Pittsburgh Pirates, coming making some moves. Their offseason has been interesting in a very not competitive division, and maybe some Orioles talk at the end because I love my O's. Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Michael. Baseball's back in full swing. We got the WBC starting up yesterday with Cuba taking an unfortunate loss to the Netherlands, and Panama starting off swinging this morning with a dominant showing
Yeah.
over Chinese Taipei. So I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm very excited with everything that's going on in the baseball world today.
Yeah, it's a lot. I was very excited to see some of these exhibition games that are going on. Canada got a little bit destroyed by the Cubbies. Bellinger, my boy Bellinger, hit a home run. Speaking of people with B names, Jacob, you know who the Padres got this offseason? They got my boy Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
boy, 280, I think it was 11-year contract. They also brought in Seth Lugo, Michael Waka to close out that rotation. A couple of minor leaguer guys that could fill out the spots. Nelson Cruz, big baddie. GM who just homered for not even just a player. The general manager for the WBC Dominican Republic team who homered today against the Braves. So that was an awesome clip to see. They bring in guys like Matt Carpenter, Brett Honeywell on a minor league deal. And of course their two big bad boy extensions of Machado and Darvish. They obviously took the reins last postseason and took the Dodgers down, which is sad to see, but exciting as a baseball fan to know that the West is getting competitive again, and it's good for baseball. It's gonna be great to see how this rivalry plays out. Who knows if the Giants can come out of nowhere and do something? Maybe the D-backs. Oh, but um, well, how do you feel about this offseason, Jacob? As looking at this from a Dodger fan's perspective, from a baseball fan's perspective, how do you feel about the offseason in general for the Padres?
Yeah, the Padres for a while now, I would say the past few years have really wanted to be competitive. And we haven't quite seen that until this past year. Granted, they didn't have the best regular season. Um, and they weren't nearly as competitive throughout the season with the Dodgers as they've been wanting to, but they came up and absolutely spanked us in the playoffs. And I mean, yeah, the Dodgers didn't show up, but you know what? The better team won. And in that being the Padres. And I was a little sad to see them kind of also have a little bit of a flop against the Phillies. But then again, you know what? The Phillies came out swinging and they looked really good too. So, um, coming into this offseason, I personally didn't think they had to make too many moves. I think they needed to kind of keep steady, make sure that all the guys that are on the team stay on the team. Maybe make some additions to their bullpen because I think their bullpen was a little weak, especially with Hader not really finding his place in that closing role. Um, but man, did they make some offseason moves? Xander Bogarts. I think I'll be honest. I think that came a little bit out of nowhere for me personally.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
seeing that they had Ha-Sung Kim, who was absolutely outstanding at shortstop, filling in for the Tatis Jr. shortstop phenom that we thought we were going to get, that kind of petered out towards for that season. But knowing he would be coming back, I didn't think they would really feel like they needed a middle infielder at all, much less a shortstop. And they go out and sign one of the best shortstops there is in the game currently. So, there's that. Also great bat on that guy. He's one of those dudes kind of like a Trey Turner where he's just going to be putting up 300 average seasons. That's just very likely about what he's going to be doing. Um, Manny Machado coming out and saying that he wants to test free agency because there's big dollars and the price of eggs has gone up. And damn, did those eggs go up in price? They made sure to lock him up, and you know what? Good for them. Um, you need to lock up a guy like that, and we can tell that this infield in general for the Padres is going to be stellar for the next few years to come. Manny Machado, people like to hate on him, and with good reason. He's a very outspoken dude. Especially in his younger years, he was very came off as arrogant. Uh, I feel like he's really started to find himself in the veteran role, in the let me take the young guys under my wing type of role, and I've really liked to see what he's done in the clubhouse, with holding people accountable. For Tatis, for one of those big, holding him accountable type things. I've really loved to see what Manny Machado has done, and so to see him extended within the Padres. As a Dodger fan, I hate to see it, but as a baseball fan, I love to see it. That's absolutely great. And like you touched on, Nelson Cruz, Matt Carpenter, Rune Odor, Michael Waka, some great additions that the Padres have made. And for not too much capital. They've obviously got those huge contracts with Machado, Darvish, Juan Soto, Xander Bogarts, but some of these signings came in at some low numbers, and they might have some pretty big impact for some small signings. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, I'm glad to see the West getting more competitive. Um, Obviously, I want to see the Dodgers win every single title ever, but that's just not going to be. That's just not what's going to happen. I'd very like to see a close race between the Padres. I personally, I don't think I see the Giants being terribly competitive, but the D-backs in the next few years might get interesting with them. So we'll see. But the Padres certainly made some good moves, and I would say was a huge success uh over the offseason, at least on paper. I mean, we'll see how they compete this season, but on paper, they did nothing but make great additions.
I agree. I mean, off seasons have been filled with a lot of money being thrown out everywhere. I mean, look at past couple off seasons too, going back to Buck Showalter, Stevie, and his Mets, how they brought in a lot of guys. The Texas Rangers have been throwing out a lot of money. That's been a kind of a theme of an off season. One or two teams just going ham in on bringing all these players, and the Padres weren't going to be cheap. There was reports of them offering a 400 million contract to Judge, a 342 contract to Trey Turner. Both of them ended up going elsewhere, but they were like, we're gonna lock up our guy, and that guy is Xander Bogarts. And it's crazy to think in 2033, unless they're not injured or they're not traded or whatever happens, Xander Bogarts, Manny Machado, and Fernando Tatis Jr. will still be on this team. That is just insane. Whether it's at the end of their prime or they're still kicking it, putting up 30 home run seasons as a 42-year-old. But another reason why the Padres offseason to me is really interesting. They also lost quite a few players. Brandon Drury, who kind of had a breakout season last year, goes to the Angels. Josh Bell, who did struggle with them, but put up some key moments that kind of took them where they needed to go in that postseason. He goes to Cleveland, and they lost a lot more than you would think. Of course, especially with these guys coming in and showing what they can do with their money. But their pitching rotation is a very, very, very solid point of question for any team in particular. But your top three right now is Musgrove, Snell, and Darvish. And obviously, you're going to lock those guys in for good seasons. Snell is coming off a contract year. I'm surprised they worked out a deal with Darvish before they did Snell. I'm actually really that kind of shocking me to think what's his future with the Padres. But as we heard, Musgrove goes down a month at least with that toe injury in the weight room. So that, and obviously two of the most important months in baseball is September and April, how you start and how you finish. And if they don't have that guy to kind of rough out that rotation that was already kind of a question, it's definitely a big deal. I mean, you have Michael Waka as your 4, had a great season last year. Don't like let me undermine him because he had a great season. I would have loved him for the Dodgers, but he's expected to digress and have a 4.6 ERA next year. And Seth Lugo, who has always been the reliever guy, has great stuff, but can he not get out as a starter? And that's what they're kind of banking on. They said they might run with a 6-man rotation, maybe someone like Ryan Weathers, who's supposed to be a guy we've seen the past couple of years. But of course, no matter how you look at this offseason for the Padres, you're going to like the additions more than you do the subtractions. But then again, you don't know how these guys are going to perform because another theme of the offseason, guys switching positions. Obviously, the big Jazz Chisholm moving to center fielder. He's like, I'm going to win a gold glove out there. Jake Cronenworth is expected to get a lot of time at first base. And first base is one of the more, it's grueling, but it's one of the harder positions to learn because you really have to be in a good state of mind to go out there and go put plays on every day. And do you think, one, that Cronenworth is ready for that? And two, do you think, even with Tatis going to the outfield, how much does it impact them from a defensive standpoint? And how much damage or luck can it bring?
Yeah. So I want to go back to one of those points that you made with the rotation being a big question mark for the Padres. I agree. But I think the question mark is more so at the depth at the position. I think their starting rotation, healthy wise, looks fucking solid. It looks as solid as any other rotation you compare it to, with Snell, Darvish, and Musgrove at the top of that. Um, it's a great rotation, but like you said, the big question mark I think is that depth, right? With Musgrove going out with a toe injury, if anybody else takes a hit before season starts or right as season starts, that's gonna be a tough. It's gonna be tough to fill because we really only have um, 6 guys right there that I see personally ready for it. One that sixth man being Weathers. Weathers has shown a lot of promise, I think. As a Dodger fan, watching plenty of games between the Dodgers and the Padres, I've saw my fair share of Weathers, and Weathers, honestly, I thought looked really good. He's got some good stuff, and he's got plenty of time to come into his own, unless he has to be the guy if multiple injuries get fielded within this starting rotation. So I think that's where that big question mark is going to be, and I don't personally know how their prospects look pitching wise for the Padres. I don't know if they've got any guys that they have their eyes on to see if they can you know get started and make some additions for that Padres starting rotation if there were to be some injuries, but I guess we'll see as that comes. Cronenworth, that dude can do no wrong. That kid, much like Tatis, he's an athlete, man. I think he's one of those dudes where he's your util guy, where you say, "Where do you need me?" and he'll figure it out. Will there be some adjustments? Absolutely. I mean, I do believe he has played some first base within the past few seasons. Probably not as much as you would like to see somebody who's probably going to be starting at that first base position. But I don't doubt by middle to the end of the season, if they haven't made a trade for a first baseman, he will have made the adjustments and become at bare minimum a good first baseman. Um, like I said, he's an athlete, and I think you could slot him in at just about anywhere. So there will be a period of adjustment, but he'll figure it out. And I think the same goes for Tatis. That dude is an athlete. Um, w- he will probably be able to figure it out in the outfield. I know it's tough to go from the infield to the outfield, as in like a professional standpoint. Um, get used to fielding uh those hard line drives, get used to playing off the wall, get used to being able to spot a ball and have a good idea of where it's going in front of you, behind you. Um, it's gonna be another transition, a transitionary period. We're probably gonna see him make some errors. That's just how life is gonna be. But I can see him making the adjustments and being a great outfielder. And if we're talking an outfield that's, flanked by Tatis Jr. and Juan Soto, that's terrifying. Um, defensively and offensively. I mean, we know Tatis has a gun, so I know that's not going to be an issue from him throwing from deep left field or deep center field to home plate. I wouldn't want to test his arm. So I think the Padres are going to find a lot of success with these guys finding their new positions. Like I said, there's going to be an adjustment period, and these first few months are probably going to be a little bit tough. We're going to see some errors. We're going to see some misplays, some miscues. But that's baseball. It's a game of adjustments, and the only way you can figure out that you're making a wrong move is to make that wrong move and to correct it in the future. So overall, I feel like we're going to be finding a lot of success seeing these dudes at these new positions.
2 questions before we end our discussion with the big bad Friars. Kind of going back to the defensive standpoint. You got, of course, as I mentioned, Chisholm moving to center. You got Tatis moving to the outfield. Who do you like? Who do you like more that feel to better equipped? Like you don't have to go into depth and explain it, but if you could be like, I feel more confident in this guy than this guy, putting there and doing better. Who would you say?
I think Chisholm's gonna win a Gold Glove. I like that kid. He brings so much energy, so much hype to the game of baseball. People like to say he's arrogant, and you know what? These kids need to be, man. Like coming uh into the game of baseball, you have to be confident in your own stuff. And to hear his level of confidence to say, you can slot me in wherever you want. I'll be a gold glove position player at that position. I love to hear that. And I can't personally attest to his work ethic, but I'd like to think that his work ethic would back up his talk. I mean, we've seen that kid play. We've seen that kid just go out there and dominate the field as an infielder. And so I don't doubt that we can see him go to the outfield and thrive, especially if he's out there working every day to get better. I really really can't wait to see what Chisholm does in the outfield. He's just electric, man. He's gonna be that dude that's out there diving on the warning track, making a play that you're going to see in Sports Center top 10. Um, I know that for a fact. So I'm more excited just in terms of like quality and hype behind to see Chisholm play the outfield. Absolutely.
And then one final question: the big storm at the end of every rainbow. Otani, of course, being that rainbow at that storm. After the 2023 season, the Padres have said that they've wanted to come in and go for him. But again, you got not only Soto to look after for in a couple years, got Josh Hader who's coming out the books, who's probably, if he puts up a good year, is gonna get a lot of money. So do you think they would rather risk not extending Soto and go after Shohei, or bring back Hader and then extend Soto?
It's tough. It's tough to say because you look at Shohei Otani and he is worth the price of two incredible players. I saw him once compared to I think Corbin Burns and Kyle Schwarber. And that's what you're getting in a package deal for one person. So would the Padres be willing to possibly not extend Juan Soto and Josh Hader? I think so. I think he's that generational talent, and I know I've used generational talent before. Um, Shohei Otani is, in my eyes, the king of baseball, at least at right now. And assuming he stays healthy and keeps doing what he's doing, he will very likely be the best player to ever play baseball. Um, to do what he's doing on both sides of the ball, to absolutely manhandle games and win games off of your back, where you're pitching a 7 inning shutout and you have 2 home runs and that's the only runs your team has scored. Like give this man whatever he wants and sign him for the rest of his life. Like it's crazy. So, do I think the Padres would go for a guy like that? Absolutely. I think every team is going to. I think every team who has, any money to their name is going to put in for Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, that's just like that. How are you not going to go for a guy who checks off two of those boxes? He is a power hitter. He is a ace dominant pitcher. Absolutely, you're going to go for this guy. I mean, assuming that you think that he can continue this level of play for at least another couple years, absolutely he's worth it. Um, I won't doubt for a fact that the Padres would, at bare minimum, entertain a trade deal and or a huge signing out of the free agency period this next off season. Absolutely, and I definitely think they would it would be worth it to them to possibly not extend Juan Soto in order to sign Shohei Ohtani.
100% agree. I mean, Shohei is just. I mean, you compare Juan Soto, prime to be one of the best players in the game, is already one of the best players in the game. But you got Shohei Ohtani, who is the best player in the game, and it's that question of not only are you getting an amazing bat, you're getting a pitcher. Like we've said, the Padres pitching has been a bit of a question, especially with Snell might potentially leaving after the season. Who knows if that? If they do lose Snell, I think that idea becomes more likely. But it's not going to happen because the Dodgers are going to give him a $500 million contract at the end of the year. Just don't tell Angel fans that. But going off of that, let's go back to the East Coast where my guy Andrew McCutchen goes back to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not a farewell tour though. He wants to make them win. And my oh my, have they made the moves? MVP G-Man Choi, my guy, he's gonna come in and rake. They bring in Carlos Santana, Connor Joe. I thought was a really interesting move. I like that move for them. Harlan Garcia, don't like that guy after he mocked the Mookie bet. Well, I'll let us that for now. Rich Hill, my guy, I loved Rich Hill. Such a guy. Met him. He's a cool dude. Vince Velasquez, who can give you some innings. And last but certainly not least, a move that was made today, Mark Mathias, an infielder from the Rangers, to make they moved Max Kranick, one of their prospects, to the 60 man to get him. But they've added some depth. And if you look at this lineup compared to a lineup like the Reds, maybe even the Cubs, I like this lineup a little bit more. I mean, if you're putting out an outfield of Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, 162, with O'Neal Cruz and Ke'Bryan Hayes, that's a pretty good lineup. And I'm not saying the Pirates are going to come out here and win 90 games. Hell, I'm not even saying they're going to win 70 games. But I like where this direction is going for them, especially that these deals are 1 year, 2 year, they're short deals that could be shipped off for prospects if they do well. And their farm system has been a very big point of question. I mean, their best prospect, Henry Davis, who looks like a stud, but there's a lot of more question marks in that farm system. So I think these moves are going to help them do that. But do you think if these guys can perform on the daily level, that they keep them and build off them? Or like I said, do you think they do go ahead and trade them if they are performing well?
Well, let's start off. One of the best things a team like the Pirates can do, where you have a bunch of young guys just out there foaming at the mouth, ready to play baseball, is to add some veterans to give them that sort of person to look up to gain experience from, to talk to learn from. And they went out and got two of the older dudes, one of the oldest guys to start on an open day roster, Rich Hill, my man who continues to come back and defy odds, kind of Tom Brady-esque, where he's just playing until he can't throw anymore. And Andrew McCutchen. Those are some two grizzled veterans that you are adding to a lineup of young dudes where these guys can just be sponges and just soak up as much information from these two as they possibly can. And I personally love to see it, truly. Rich Hill coming in, honestly, he's probably going to do more impact to the young pitching staff than he will do to the actual physical game for the Pirates. I know Rich Hill's been having a few tough years, in terms of staying healthy and whatnot. Um, but like I said, he can almost be like a secondary pitching coach where he's just there and can back up those young guys and just give them a bunch of experience from what he's learned over the countless years he's played the MLB. And same thing goes for McCutcheon. Um and you gotta love to see McCutcheon going back to the Pirates, man. Like that's like seeing Albert Pujols back on the Cardinals. It's just something you love to see as a baseball fan. These dudes make such big names in their franchises, and to see them come back to them towards the end of their career, that's just awesome. That's a baseball love story. And so do I think they'll get traded? Some of these pieces will get traded towards the end. Realistically, yeah, I do think so. And part of it, you have to look at this as a business standpoint, right? What can the Pirates get out of these pieces? Bringing in Andrew McCutcheon for a year, genius, absolute pure genius from the GM, because you're bringing in a huge pool of fans just to see Andrew McCutcheon back in a Pirates uniform. That's it. That's all you need to sell more tickets. Period. End of story. Are they going to hate to see him get traded towards the end of the year, towards the trade deadline? Absolutely. Yeah, that's just going to suck. If that does happen. But the Pirates need to build a team. And one way you can do that is to bring in a veteran like McCutcheon, somebody who everybody loves, somebody who's going to do great for the actual team, like just in the dugout, getting them to learn a bunch of stuff, and then getting to build up his trade value and trade him towards the end to build up your prospects. Like that's just from a business standpoint, that is just so pure genius. It just is. Um, Obviously, like I said, people are gonna hate to see Andrew McCutcheon go, but if it's to build up the Pirates for the better for the future, in the long run, you should see that that is a great move. Um, and to do it with somebody, like I said, that is such a staple of the Pirates fan base, that's just, I mean, that's cherries on top, man. That's just gravy on mashed potatoes. Um, so do I think it's gonna happen? I think that's the most likely scenario and the smartest thing to do in this from the side of the Pirates. And honestly, I think if you're the Pirates, you get rid of Brian Reynolds. Um, love the guy, great athlete. He doesn't want to play for your team, and you can't have that on your team. You don't want guys who don't want to be there. Um, Obviously you want to keep him, and he's one of those talents that you want to keep on the team. He's a key Brian Hayes, he's an O'Neill Cruz that you've seen his potential and you want to keep him on there, but he just doesn't want to be there. And unless you can convince him otherwise, the best thing you can do for your team as a team is get rid of him at the trade deadline. Let him build up his trade value. Let him build it up as high as possible and trade him. Because if you let it get to free agency, he's not re-signing. He's made that clear. He wants to be elsewhere. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild, which is where the Pirates are right now. Like you said, we're not going to see them go out and win 80, 90 games. It's just not reasonable to guess that. Um, but to see them build up their rebuild value and to see them be competitive in the next few years is very likely. And I think that starts with trimming out the people who don't want to be on your team. That's not what you want from a team aspect. That's not what you want on your team. Um, so I think we're gonna see several big trades from the Pirates at the trade deadline. Like I said, I think it's the best move for them. But in the meantime, I think we're going to see a very fun pirate squad. I think we're going to see a very a very learn-heavy Pirate squad where they're gonna go out there and they're gonna lose games, but they're gonna lose with class, and they're going to gain a lot of information from their games. And I think within the next few years, a team like the Pirates, a team like the Orioles, a team like the Rangers, we're gonna see start to be competitive within the next few years.
I 100% agree. I mean, Brian Reynolds, a guy I've mentioned on the show before. He's a stud. I didn't really hear his name until 2021. I was like, let me look at this guy's stat page, and I was like, oh damn, he's a player, and he's a guy that I think, like I've said, he's going to get traded no matter what happens. Of course, he has said he might be open up to the idea of the extension, but he wants to win, and like you said, he does not want to be a part of some rebuild. He is a guy, and he deserves that because he is that type of player. So my question is, where do you see him going? But let me paint you a picture, Jacob. They said that they were looking for pitching prospects. I know I said the Dodgers, but I'd rather have Shohei. That's all. I'll be honest. Cause Shohei. But a team that we've mentioned before in this video, kind of reference to, that has the pitching depth. If Jazz Chisholm does not find his way out there in center field, they have the pitching depth to send a trade over and bring in Brian Reynolds. They were linked to him earlier this offseason. The Marlins said that they're going to try to, there's no reason why they can't be 500. And honestly, good for you. Good optimism. But I mean, not even just saying that from like a standpoint of, oh, they're going to suck, but they've been struggling for the past few years. They made some moves. I like their moves a lot. And a guy like Brian Reynolds to this squad might not get them that 80-90 win team, but hell, like you said, we're going to see these guys be competitive in the next few years. And that's great for the sport of baseball. So where do you see Brian Reynolds landing if he does get traded?
Here's the thing with Brian Reynolds, right? He's one of those athletes that you can probably slot in just about anywhere you want. You can have him play second, short, third, any outfield position. Hell, I'm sure he could probably play first base if he really wanted to. So, where do I think he's going to go? Anybody who needs any sort of position player. Hell, even a DH. Any competitive team that needs to additions to their fielding depth will at least look at trading for Brian Reynolds. Um, like I said, he can fill any position. I could probably see him playing second base really well. And any outfield position. So, um, I can see the Dodgers at least looking at him, and I know they've got their big fish, Shohei Ohtani, but I can see the Dodgers looking at him. Um, I wouldn't say the Padres are the chopping block because we've seen them make additions that we didn't necessarily expect. And if we see a Padres outfield of Juan Soto, Tatis, and Brian Reynolds, I'm gonna run from that. I'm gonna take the pass on watching those games against the Dodgers. Um, the Marlins, yeah, I think they have the pitching depth to make the trade, but I don't know if Brian Reynolds would be willing to go to a Marlins team that is kind of in this limbo of, are we competitors? Are we not? We have Sandy Alcantara, who's arguably one of the best pitchers in the game right now. But do we really have the pull to make a case otherwise? I mean, they're in a disturbingly evil division right now with the Phillies, the Braves, the Mets. I mean, do they even want to be competitive right now? Is it worth it to try and compete against these rosters? I don't think so. Um, who knows? Maybe the Mets will sign him for another $300 million because they're just printing money all over the place. I really don't know. I think he's one of those players that's really up in the air right now because he can fit wherever people want him to. It's just a matter of where does he want to go and which teams are willing to trade for him. Um, I can see him landing on the Astros realistically. Um, they could use some additions right now. I know they've kind of lost a few more pieces than they wanted to. And I'm pretty sure they have the cap space for it. So I could see them making a trade and an extension for Brian Reynolds. I'd hate to see that, but I could see it happening. Another team that I think is a sleeper pick for Brian Reynolds that I think would do really good is the Mariners. I think the Mariners could make those additions. I don't necessarily know they have the amount of pitching depth in order to trade for him, but I know they could probably really use him. Um, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes this trade deadline. At least probably where he's going to go because I would say he's most likely getting traded. But then again, the Pirates GM might be a little bit of a stickler and want to try and write it out and extend him. Which I mean, hey, you can't argue why he's doing it. Obviously, he's doing it because he sees a great talent in Brian Reynolds. But at some point, if you're not going to get him to buy into being on the team, ship him out for as much as you can get.
100% agree. We got a little bit more time left. The one last thing wanted to cover: the Orioles. They're my American League team. They're my super team for this year. But I mean, you look at them and they're like, okay, maybe the rebuild's over after a very surprising season last year. They said maybe the rebuild's over. Maybe it's time to go spend some money. And they were kind of in a position to do that. Unlike the Tigers, I made the comparison of these two teams. The Orioles were in a spot where they can go make these moves and be competitive. And the Tigers just said, we're going to spend money to try and compete. And like we said, the Orioles didn't necessarily have to do that. I mean, and they didn't. They were linked to Correa. They were linked to Rodon. They ended up with Adam Frazier, James McCann, Michael Givens, Kyle Gibson, and my guy, Swervin Irvin. I really like that trade. The A's got fleeced again, but that's the story of their life over there in Oakland. Hopefully, they move out to Vegas soon. But as we're running out of time here, again, I like their offseason. It's kind of a sleeper one. The manager, I hated when he came out and said that they overperformed, and quite granted, like point blank, they did. But you don't just come out and say that and like we're not gonna try to win. Like I said that as a really stupid quote. But do you think you can see this team making more moves and even getting a push for that last wildcard spot, or do you think we do see that same Baltimore regression?
Yeah, I think it's really going to depend on what this season looks like for them. I think if they start out the beginning of the season hot, and they can stay hot and ride it out to the trade deadline, I think they make big moves. I think that'd be the realistic thing to do. Ride the high. I know they're kind of swinging above their pay cut, but you know what? They're doing it, and they've been doing it well, at least this past season. So if they start out real good, I think they make some big moves at the trade deadline. If they start out real quiet, I think they kind of just sail into the offseason and maybe look for a couple of moves there. Um, I think their big keys are, can these rookies not slump like we usually see rookies do? We can see rookies come out and have some good first couple seasons, then they usually tend to quiet down. And so, what are we going to see from these rookies after their second, third, fourth season? Because, like I said, if they keep performing, they're going to be doing great. They're in a tough division, but they're going to be doing great. They're going to be living a good life if they can perform like they did last season.
Orioles are winning the division. I'm calling it right now. I think it's gonna be the Yankees. Speaking of that, thank you for joining us for another episode of Talking Let's Talk Baseball. Next week, in the weeks before opening day, we are starting our power rankings. The offseason moves and cover-ups have been completed. Thank you for joining us. But again, we're starting power rankings. We're gonna start with 30 to hopefully 25 if we have the time next week. We'll see what you guys think. Obviously, I mean, I think there's a couple teams you can expect to be in that bottom five. Oakland A's. But we'll see how that goes. Hope you join us next week. I'm Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend Jacob Payne, and we will see you guys next time.